Welcome back to Worthy and Abundant, the podcast. I'm so excited today. We have a guest. Her name is Marcelle LeBlanc, and her brand is The Conversation Architect. And Marcelle has discovered that one honest conversation can save a woman years of resentment, years of loneliness, and the quiet grief of not being seen. Years spent building a life with the wrong person or with the right person in the wrong way. After surviving an unhealthy marriage, infidelity, and a devastating divorce, Marcelle's path took an unexpected turn. Through more than a decade of conversations with thousands of women in the business she built, she began noticing the same painful pattern over and over again. Many women know something is wrong in their relationship long before they allow themselves to say it out loud. Many convince themselves it's good enough, only to realize years later that it was a painful mistake. Today, Marcelle is an entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar retail brand and now dedicates her life to the conversation architect. Marcelle is on a mission to help women make the critical decision that could change their lives, not by spending months in couples therapy, but through one honest conversation that can set them on a path toward love, happiness, and alignment. Welcome, Marcel, to the show. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So, Marcel, take us back to the beginning. What happened in your marriage that ultimately changed the course of your life?
Well, on my 9-year anniversary, I discovered that my husband had taken his girlfriend to the British Virgin Islands. And when I caught him, he never came home. I never laid eyes on him again. And I found out that he had another relationship with another person for quite a bit of time.
It's crazy. I read that on your, yeah, that's awful. So, and looking back, what were the earliest signs that you ignored, and why do you think so many women do that?
Well, some of the signs there were clues everywhere. Um, Sometimes he would travel for work, and I would pretend to be asleep. And when the garage door was closed, I'd hop out of bed, and knowing that I had a couple days with the dog, I felt relief. One time, people asked us at dinner if we were having kids, and he said yes, and I said no, and we said it simultaneously, and there were clues and signs. I just think I didn't have the language or the curiosity back then to even know what to do with that information.
So, what I read in your bio was that you basically couldn't get off the floor or you couldn't get out of bed for a few days. I mean, that's just incredibly painful that you discovered that and then he cut you off. He
Mm,
ghosted you. Like
I never saw him again. Yeah, yeah.
so how tell us some steps that you took to get yourself where you are today.
The big steps I took were learning eventually. I got coaches for business and learning what my values were. First, learning what I wanted. And when I got really solid in that, and that was not an easy task. It took me, I committed to sitting down for about 6 weeks on a regular basis and really learning what I wanted and who I was. And when I knew that, then I started measuring everything against that and where I spent my time and who I spent my time with. And that really helped me to become more solid in who I was. And then over the years, learning the skills, I'm really I love Kim Scott's work, and I'm really passionate about she calls it radical candor, where you um, care personally but challenge directly. And so over the years, I developed a values-based framework on how to get to figure out what you want. And if something matters enough to replay in your head over and over again, I think it really deserves language. And so you figure out what's happening specifically in your life, what you're feeling about it, the impact, and then being able to make a clear and specific request with someone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so important. And so, one of the most powerful things you wrote is that women fall into 2 categories, the women who ask and the women who hope. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I've had the opportunity with my company, Velvet Box, to speak to thousands of women, and I found that they fell into 2 categories, the women who ask and the women who hope. Women who ask know exactly what matters to them and they ask for it. Women who hope are managing resentment, disappointment, disconnection, and waiting and hoping time might fix that. And the only thing that keeps um, marching on is time. And what I absolutely love to see is strong, educated women who are thriving in their career. They discover a life partner they love, they're aligned with, they're really fostering that common language. But what I find, and I really hate to see this part, is that they end up blowing up their entire lives because they don't treat the most important decision they're ever going to make, which is their life partner, the way they should. And sometimes these ladies know that their relationships on borrowed time, and they just refuse to acknowledge that they have to have a conversation that's either going to fix it and deepen the relationship or keep it from being a painful mistake.
Mhm.
I don't know if someone comes to mind when I say those words.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember just I think financially women stay in miserable situations because they don't think they can go out on their own and make money and take care of themselves. Is that something you encounter?
I have encountered a lot of that, and including some of my personal friends. And I don't tell women whether to stay or to go, but my work happens before that decision. We get clear about what's going on in her life, what she wants, and then she has the conversation with her partner and then uses her partner's response
Yeah.
as information for what to do next.
Yeah. So how did you get into the work that you're doing? And what was your career when all this went down with your ex-husband? What were you working? I don't recall. Did you have a
I was working, I had a job. I was working in I had a horticulture degree from Cal Poly, and I was, working, I believe, for Costco at the time, well, a vendor for Costco and doing their cut flowers. And when that happened, I was making about $35,000 a year, and then I found out that I had a whole lot of debt that was incurred under my name.
Mm,
And so I ended up looking around for a job, put my resume out on Monster, and I had an adult video company that reached out to me that needed a buyer, and I knew nothing about it. And I went on the interview, and they offered me 40% more increase in pay. And when you're in survival mode like that, you just take the job. And I'm like, I'm going to do the job until they figure out I don't know what I'm doing,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
I'll do something else. And I ended up really liking it because I started traveling. Traveling is a really something that was really important to me. And I stayed along in the business, went into sales, and ended up traveling all over the US and Europe, seeing stores. And what I did find a lot is that a lot of those stores were not very intentional in the experience. And so when I moved to Texas in 2008, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a law here that said toys were illegal. So before that, we would put on a sticker on them that said for cake decoration only in order to be compliant. And when that law was overturned, I um I had this vision of this type of store where we had ultra curated products in high-end locations with really educated young ladies that work there. And I developed something called Velvet Box University, and they go through that university in order to give them every person that comes into the store the experience. And so speaking to thousands, I've had that business for 17 years, and I got to speak to thousands of women, and it was an honor to hear some of their stories when they found out who I was and what I did. And I did notice that a lot of those people were some people were coming in to just spice things up and be curious, but a lot of those people were trying to fix what had been, um, damaged by lack of communication and conversation with the
Yeah.
product, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I am sure. I know there's other like, there's sex therapist, not sex well, there's a couple that I know personally, one here in Sarasota and another one on an online platform where she helps. I forgot her brand right now, but anyway, it's a need. I mean, we do. We need to communicate. We need to know how, and that's where you come in, it sounds like. And then you have built this brand of like intimate toys. Is that how you what do you describe it?
Yeah. Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly what it
Intimate
is, yeah.
toy. Yeah. I've been in those stores before with a partner or whatever. So no, I mean, I can appreciate those things. I just thought it was interesting when I was reading all about you and I was reading about, betrayal that happened to you, which my very closest friend is a betrayal trust coach and she had her own experience. So I won't share, but ultimately it's so interesting how our worst nightmare can turn into perhaps a blessing in some
Yeah,
way.
I have a favorite, saying that says, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?"
Exactly
And
right.
you wait long enough, the betrayal at the end and the divorce, that was just the explosion. But the real damage that was done was the 10 years that I lost from not knowing who I was and living off of inherited values from your family, what looks good from the outside, that
Yes,
sort of thing.
yes, yes. Let's dig into this. Let's unpack this a little bit because that's what the podcast is really about. Worthy and abundant is unlearning all the programming. And you thought you were doing you got married. Like tell us a little bit, like why did you marry this man that you had on your wedding night? You were like, I don't want to, right?
Well,
Like you didn't want to marry him and you felt like your dad wanted you to or something.
yeah, well, momentum, I think momentum just took over when
Right.
you don't have when you don't know what you want. And I mean, I was young. He
Right.
proposed. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But saying no seemed way bigger and messier than going along with it. And for you know it, there's a dress and time goes by and 10 years go by. And I just really let momentum do
Right.
all the deciding for me.
Yeah,
My
and society, right? Because you
Mhm.
thought this is what you do, you get married, and
This is the next logical thing. This is,
right,
he asks and, we're living together. This is what we're supposed to do.
exactly, and that's what a lot of people that come on my show, they'll say, "Well, I went to college, and then I found got married, and then I had kid and then all these things," and then they're, like, finding themselves midlife completely unhappy, and they're like, "Well, wait, I thought I was doing all the things I'm told to do to be happy, and it's not what you because it's not what you want." So it's interesting, and I just love this conversation around what women need to start learning who they are underneath all the conditioning and the programming and what they truly want and be able to be authentic. That's when our life gets juicy, when we can be our authentic selves and do what we want, right?
And, I focus on when you're stop analyzing the other person or people in your life and you want to begin looking honestly at yourself, what we're doing, what we're tolerating, what we're avoiding. I had a coach tell me years ago, he says, Marcel, he says, you would prefer to look directly into the sun instead of the mirror. And he says, "How long are you gonna go ahead and do that?" He says, "Because when you start looking in the mirror, we can start really making some changes that are gonna make a difference in your life."
Oh, so
And
many
so
women. Yeah. Mm.
that willingness to look inward and build that skill to show up differently, you show up differently in every relationship. And, I work with those smart, capable women who they're managing all this disappointment and resentment, but they're struggling to say what's wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I help them just get really honest with themselves, figure out what they want, and prepare them for the conversation. Because I can't say enough about how if something is bothering you, if you're having any type of one-sided conversations, um, then it deserves language. If it matters, it deserves language.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
prepare for that.
Let's share about your best friend telling you you suck, and, instead of ending the friendship, you listened and you saw it as a gift. What did that
Um,
moment teach you?
well, we were at a restaurant one time, and I was very direct, and the waitress came over and she said, "Hi, how are you?" And I said, "I need a Diet Coke." And my friend, when she left, she says, "You just really suck." She says, You don't see how people receive you in the world. You're not going." I probably looked put together. My finances were coming back in order and I was gainfully employed, but I really wasn't showing up like I should have. And that moment for me was so pivotal. I really value people who tell me the truth, and I know that she did it out of love, because who wakes up in the morning thinking, "You know what? The goal is to not be your best self." And I didn't know that. And so that really set me on a path of I went and I bought some books and I started reading and figuring out, why I did what I did. How did I end up in the relationship that who was the person, who was the girl that got married to someone that she wasn't sure she wanted to be married to? And I can't even say that the infidelity was 100% his fault, because how did I end up there to begin with? How did I end up with a person, that didn't want to be married to me either? So that was the journey,
Yeah,
is
so you
figuring
started
that
on
out.
a self-discovery journey, really, and that's something I've been on for a long time, and it's so powerful and so beautiful, and when we become our own best advocate and we know that we're inherently worthy, we don't have to earn God's love, and we're actually inherently worthy, and we can whatever, we don't have to subscribe to all of these society's ways of living and thinking is, the logical way, right?
It's a constant journey.
It
I
is.
don't think
Every
we'll
day.
ever get off of it.
Right, right. So what does a healthy relationship look like to you today? Uh, And like,
Well,
yeah.
for me, I think it's saying what you want and advocating for yourself. I'll give you an example. I'm working with I was working and talking to a young lady. Her name's Lauren, and she comes to me and says, my relationship is a slow death." And as she's telling me things that are going on, it sounds like they're absolute strangers in the same house. And so dinner in the evening, they're scrolling on Instagram. They have their own Netflix shows that they like, so they retreat to their separate rooms to watch their own shows. And some nights she admits, "I go to bed early because I just want to avoid the awkward silences." And so as she's laying there having these one-sided conversations as we do, she's thinking maybe breaking up. And that feels way too catastrophic to her. So she convinces herself on all the other nights, this is good enough. This is how marriage works." And so on a call, I asked her, I said, "Lauren, what do you want?" And she immediately gives me examples of more connection, excitement, intimacy. But it wasn't that she didn't know what she wanted. It was admitting to herself that without the things that she wanted, that she would be resentful and the distance would grow between them. And so I asked her, I said, "Let's look forward 10 years. What does future 10-year Lauren look like?" And she started crying and she says, I don't want to live like this. I know that that's not gonna be healthy, and I'm scared, and it's gonna turn into a big fight. So we picked one thing that was really bothering her, one thing that was small, and we crafted a conversation around how to say that one thing. And so when that big moment came for her to have the conversation, all the catastrophic things that were going through her head, do you know what happened?
What
He
happened?
said, "I felt it too." And
Mhm.
so that moment gave her the confidence to continue to be honest in their relationship, all the time. And that conversation didn't fix the entire relationship, but what it did do was crack the silence and end that secret suffering. And
Mhm.
later she came to me and said, I thought I was going to be breaking us up, but instead I was restarting us. I just had to go first.
Mhm.
The moral is admitting that there are conversations that need to be had on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, I think communication is so huge and, I wasn't raised in a home that did very taught us a good way to communicate, and there wasn't, like, a lot of speaking and, so it is a challenge, and, but learning to communicate changes everything, so I
Mhm.
do love that. So, how did you go from you have this experience, intimate toys retail that you own, right? In multiple states or multiple locations?
It's all in North Texas.
Okay. And you're also this one key so you're a coach for couples to help them with their intimacy or just communication, and you
I
had
only coach women. I only
oh,
coach women,
oh,
and it's not therapy, but it's with, short-term engagements,
okay.
and I developed a values-based framework, and when they're managing any type of something in their relationship that's disappointing or they're not sure what's going on and they want to fix it, make it better. We figure out what's bothering her, what is the feelings are, what the impact is, and we I teach her how to create that conversation and that skill set so that she can have successful conversations with her partner. Now, I don't tell them to stay or leave, that work happens, and then when they have the conversation with their partner, then his response is information, and that's how they would choose to proceed depending on his response. But it's mostly self-work. It's when you wanna turn that inwards.
Self-awareness, and that's the first start to healing anything is to being aware, and it sounds like you help women do that. So if you could speak to the younger Marcel before she got married, what would you tell her?
If it matters, it deserves language. You need to learn and follow your instincts, and if something's bothering you, figure out how to say something about it.
Well, now we all have ChatGPT, which helps a lot. Let's be real.
It was.
I know, it helps me a lot. I'm very grateful. Okay. And so you went from surviving at a devastating betrayal to building a successful business, and now you help women. What helped you trust yourself again?
I think our self-trust erodes when we don't know what we want and we let life happen to us. And so part of that is regaining that agency and even small things. People think that what I do is these big summits where we make these life-changing decisions, and really we don't. The conversation that you have where you say, "Can you please put your phone away at the dinner table?" is the same conversation that you're gonna have when you're talking about finances or any type of other big life decisions.
Love it. So what do you suggest couples talk about before they get married? Do you have suggestions?
Absolutely everything, how are you going to it's a contract, like, what are you gonna do you agree on things? Are you aligned? Do you want children? How are you gonna parent your children? What happens if you have a disagreement? What happens if there's large financial expenditures? How does that work?
Exactly.
Literally everything.
Yeah, everything. So if someone listening feels like something's off in their relationship, what's one conversation they could begin having this week? Just getting clear on what they want
Just getting clear on what you want. Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
then
first you first if you don't know what you want, it's gonna be really hard to articulate that to someone.
okay. So my podcast is called Worthy and Abundant. What does being worthy mean to you?
Oh, it's a constant work in progress, but being worthy means being happy with yourself, giving yourself some grace and loving yourself and knowing that tomorrow's another day and give it everything you have and knowing that you did your best.
Mm, I love that. Being like one decision at a time, right? Like, I remember being in a restaurant and literally not knowing what I wanted to order because of all of the, you know, what's he getting or my son or the this or you know what I mean? What should I get versus what do I want? I didn't even know what I wanted. That's what a lot of women experience midlife when they're like, they've been the mother, they've been the wife, and then everything's stripped away because there's empty nest, they're divorced, whatever it is. And now they're like, well, who am I? What do I like? You know what I mean?
Well, I think you have to be intentional all the time about figuring out what you want, and that changes in life. And if you I write everything down. I can't say enough about writing down what you want. Be specific. And if you do that, then there's not been a moment in my life that those things have not come to fruition. And so if you figure out what you want, then at least you know where you're going.
Right.
If you
Oh,
never do that, then you're never gonna get there, that's
exactly.
guaranteed.
Oh, yeah, I teach that all the time. That's number 1. We have self-awareness, and then we have knowing what you want, and it does get to change. It can change every day. I mean, we have the choice, but, sometimes we think we want all these shiny things, the nice car, the hot the partner and all these things, but then when you get really down to it, you're like, "You know what? I'd just be happy with a small place and, like, traveling and, all these different things." So, and people, like, block their good because they think they want something, but they're blocking it because when they get clear on how they would feel, like, "How does this feel?" It feels like, if I think about a relationship, I know a healthy relationship, but I could also think, "Oh, my freedom's gonna go away," like, these different things that like, self-sabotage, and I want all this money perhaps, but then that sounds like stress, or that sounds like new problems, you know? I think a lot of women have that, like, they say they want something, but then underneath, they actually when you're not journaling it out and writing it down, you're kinda like, "Well, I say I want it consciously, but subconsciously, I'm blocking it because I really think that's gonna cause stress, or that's gonna cause, um, my freedom to go away or something." You know what I mean?
Well, I think we are notoriously bad historians of our own lives. Women accomplish amazing things all the time, and as we're moving forward, we're only looking down one step at a time, and there's always the mountain in front of us. But I talk about something called a vista break, where sometimes you need to stop and turn around and look at all of the things that you've accomplished. And um, I again write it down. I have a journal
Yeah.
that not only do I journal gratitude daily, but there's a special journal that I have for the year that every time there's something memorable that happens, you forget. And so when you go back and look at these great things, it says why 2026 is great. And, the pages start to fill up when you go to bed going, hey, this is like something that's really memorable today. Let me write this down. And I look back and I'm going, gosh, it was way better than I had remembered it because you might be having a bad day or a bad week. And so that gives you courage
Yeah.
and to keep going.
I love that. No, I've been practicing gratitude since 2011 and 2012 when I had a health condition that was misdiagnosed and all these things, and I had to battle it with every modality, and gratitude was part of it, and I've continued that to today, and I also published a journal for setting intentions and gratitude and what you're saying, the reflection at the end of the day where you're gonna say, "What went well? What am I proud of?" Like, these are powerful, powerful, like, things, especially what you said about looking back at how far we've come, because we as humans tend to always be, what's the next thing, right? We don't celebrate enough, right? What we've accomplished. I love that. Amazing. So let's see. What's one thing you hope every woman listening remembers after today's conversation?
that the conversation that she's been thinking about is not bigger than her, and it can be done.
Wonderful. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
You can go and get the free tools at onekeyconversation.com/growth and start there with learning how to formulate the conversation that you've been thinking about. You don't need to hire me for it. You can get started immediately and go to the website, onekeyconversation.com/growth.
Beautiful. So, Marcel, do you believe your ex-husband did you a favor? Not by what he did, but because he forced you to become the woman you are today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are always exactly where we need to be. And I think I'm exactly where I need to be right now.
Amazing. Are you spiritual too?
I am. Yes.
Yeah, me as well. Um, it's amazing. Are you currently in a relationship? Just curious.
Not currently.
Yeah,
No.
neither am I. Yeah, I'm being selective. But yeah, anything can happen at any time. And I love what you're doing in the world. This is very powerful work. Is there anything else that you would like to share that perhaps I didn't ask or that we didn't talk about?
It, you know, if a partner cannot respond to a conversation that's only in your head. And so to give your relationship a real shot at being happy, figure out how to say it and include them inside the conversation.
I love that. And we can't, men are not mind readers either, right? And yeah, and I think I've learned and grown so much over the years. And I realize the better we are, the better we attract. Like the more we do the work on ourselves because we're kind of magnet and mirrors. And so um there was a coach I had on, a dating coach at one time, and she couldn't find a guy, she couldn't keep a guy, and finally she stopped and realized she was the common denominator and started to look in the mirror and do the work, and within 9 months, she met her husband, and now she coaches others on it, and it's a whole thing, but I think when women just think they're good, it's like we can always get better. We can always there's another layer, right, of, like,
Mhm.
growing and healing and evolving, so, yeah, and communication is so important, and many of us weren't taught how to communicate, so and we're just afraid, afraid of, you know
Mhm.
so I think what you're doing is wonderful, and, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, it was
It was
wonderful.
an honor.
I'll put all your links in the show notes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.